so much shorter than Ronnie.
That's all right, Jay's still coming.
Jay's coming. Best thing about Jay is he's the shortest guy on staff.
Coach,
First time.
what first attracted you to the air raid offense and Mike Leach's offense? And I guess following that, how is your offense different from what Mike Leach has done as the air raid guy, I guess?
Well, to answer your first question, I would say the first 5 years of my career, I really I studied a couple offenses and I drew from what I did in college because that's all you know. You know, when you go from being a player one year to being a coach the next year, and in my case, I was permitted to run the passing game my first year in coaching. And of course, you think you have all the answers and you don't have any of them really, but you don't know that. And so, for 5 years, I kind of I studied BYU with LaBelle Edwards, and I got a lot of stuff from Joe Tiller, who was at Purdue at the time, and you just kind of, you're searching for an identity. I knew I wanted to be an offense coordinator and a head coach, and you're searching for an identity and you're searching for a system, and you're just trying to learn the game. And then in '97, I went to, I drove down to Kentucky, and I went to see Mike Leach, who I'd never met at the time. I had no idea that was going to be the system that I felt was the right system, but I went down there and I listened to it, and we talked for a long time about his stuff, and I drove away from the University of Kentucky knowing that this was the system. And the reason was it made sense to me. I knew that I could do it as a player. I knew that at the time I didn't realize, but I knew it would help players play because it was simple and you could be instinctive doing it. And I've come to realize over the years that that's the number one benefit from being in that system. And so I adopted it that day and tried to perfect it. And to answer your second question, I would say that the difference maybe is, there are a number of different coaches that implement the air raid system. And Mike is the purist. And when I go visit with him, I always leave there and I'm reminded that the simplicity is really the genius of the whole thing. And it makes me relook at what we're doing, and it probably reaffirms for me my belief in the philosophy of keeping it simple so that the guys can play instinctively. You know, when I visit with Cliff Kingsbury, in my opinion, he's the best touchdown or prolific play game planner that I know in college football. And now you're going to see him do his thing at the Arizona Cardinals. But, he would put X amount of wrinkles in, probably more than I would in a game, and they're the prolific plays in the game. They're the touchdown plays in the game. And he does it at a higher percentage and better than most, in my opinion. That's why I sought him out early on. And I met him sitting in a quarterback room at one of Mike Leach's quarterback meetings at Texas Tech. So the area that we are falling right now is kind of more where Lincoln is at Oklahoma. The philosophy is air raid. We throw the ball that way. But there's going to be a downhill power run element to the offense that we think is very important. So we're kind of probably somewhere in between the two of those guys.
So from a football perspective, like what about the actual offense was so attractive to you? Like what assets of it?
One, it's simple. Two, it allows athletes to go be athletes.
Right.
They're not confined by the drawing of a post route in a playbook. They're given the opportunity to, I always use this example. If you're running a post route, which is just an in cut, and the safety bails and gives up a lot of grass underneath, you may run the post route exactly the way somebody might draw it up in a playbook. If that safety comes down to play in the box, that post may be more vertical and he may chase the grass behind the safety. The angle of that post is going to change. It's a decision made by the receiver, and he's doing it athletically and he's doing it on the fly, and he's really doing it without really having to think. It's instinctively reacting to where the grass is. And the quarterback is always throwing to a guy that's in space. We don't have as many contested catches, for throws in this offense because of the nature of the way we allow receivers to run routes. But the philosophy is to stay simple, spread teams out, horizontally pre-snap, vertically post-snap, and really displace 11 defenders throughout the field as much as we possibly can, and not have to go coach athletes. We distribute the quarterbacks will distribute the ball to athletes in open space, and we can do less coaching and let those guys do what they do well.
When people think of the air raid and they think of Mike Leach, they think of prolific passing. Coach Brown has emphasized the run element that you guys have in this offense. When you decided that that was going to be something that you were going to kind of focus on, when did you realize that you had to add a run element to it? Was it early on? And kind of how has the run game in your offense evolved over the years?
I don't know if I ever felt like we had to add it. I just my mindset, I think it's necessary. And I think when you're able to run the football, it helps the pass game. When you're able to throw the football and stretch the field, it helps the run game. It's very difficult to defend the field and defend the box. You know, typically most defensive coordinators are going to emphasize one over the other. The old school way of thinking is defend the box, stop the run game, force a team to throw the football, play great defense, and that wins championships. That's the traditional way of thinking, and it's being proven that it can be done a lot differently. Doesn't mean that that's wrong or right, but there are a lot of different ways to win championships. I think with the way the game is going right now, being one-dimensional helps the defense, and when you're able to run the ball and throw the football. And then there's a third aspect to the offense, and that's the screen game that I think kind of marries both of them together, because you can throw screens off the run game, you can throw screens off the pass game, and we have both. And I think that's a third element that's not usually talked about offensively, but all three are big factors in the system. And you know, I think the media thinks, in my experience in the past, that I'm trying to skate answering a question. When they ask me what are we focusing on for the opponent this week, but the answer is always the same. You know, we're gonna take what they give us, and we have the ability in this system to do that on each down. And so I never know whether we're going to throw it 70 times or run it 70 times. I just know if the quarterback's making good decisions, we're taking and attacking the grass that the defense is giving us.
How much has the power run element evolved, going back to like your Stephen F. Austin days, to previous stops, to now?
The offense really has been the same for quite a while. You know, the advantage I think that I have personally as an offense coordinator is that, and I had a conversation with a buddy of mine who's an OC in the SEC right now, and he just said the one thing that he envies is that I've been in the same offense for a long time. You know, he said, I've been coaching 19 years and I've coached in 5 different systems. And I never really realized that, but that is an advantage, because all we do is we take this vehicle that we have and we improve it each year. You know what I mean? And you get new tires on it, you soup up the engine, you shave it down so it's lighter and it's faster. You're taking this Ferrari and you're finding a way to make it faster and make it better than it was last year, as opposed to completely changing it every 3 or 4 years. So that's been a real advantage. And I would correct you, with Sam Houston State.
Sam Houston State, excuse me.
Yeah, they'd be pretty aggravated there. So.
Yeah.
Coach, I have 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Quarterback group, is this the youngest group that you've ever been associated with? And then go and tell us a little bit about each one of them strengths and what they need to work on.
Second youngest group. I had 4 true freshmen. This year I have a true freshman and 2 redshirt freshmen. And really the process, and I really like the way Coach Brown put it, the process this spring, the approach with them, not that they're not competing with each other, and they are, and we're challenging them to separate themselves from the other 2, whoever that may be. You know, that's part of this game. But the number one item on the agenda for the spring was for them to learn the offense, get the offense down, and once they learn the system, now we have to work on improving and polishing up some of the things that we don't do very well. So that's no different than the whole process for the entire offense. So we installed the entire offense in 4 days. We probably could have done it in 3. We kind of stretched it out a little bit to make it simpler. And then after we got it in, we now know it, but we're not very good at it. And that's kind of where it was with the quarterbacks as well. And then we take the next 4 days, practices 5 through 8, and we reinstalled it with the quarterbacks. and there's a focus for each day, just like there was the first 4. And after 8 days, it's interesting to see how much better we are, you know, at running the system. And I would say there was considerable improvement with the 3 quarterbacks from day 1 to day 8. And then the second half of spring ball is all about progressive situations and progressive issues with these plays, particularly with all the things that Jay Bateman threw at us defensively. And so that was really the focus the second half of spring ball. We probably had a more wide open scrimmage the week before the spring game. I think it was our goal to be much simpler in the spring game because it was being televised.
Overall, with the offense, just beyond the quarterbacks, what did you see within the spring, and where do you like where you are right now going into fall camp?
You know, this process, even though every team is different, the process is the same. You know, you got to get it installed and get it taught. Then we reinstall it, and then we want to try and perfect it. And for the next, 4 years of our freshman player's career right now, he's going to work on perfecting what we put in. The offense doesn't continually change. And there's probably 2 misconceptions about the offense. One is that we only have 28 plays. We have 28 components to the offense. And we've talked about this, you can mix and match any 2 or 3 of them. And we're as multiple as anybody that's out there, or we have the capability to be as multiple as anybody out there. But we're not going to ask our players to know 1,200 different things. We're going to ask them to know 28, and we're going to present, 700, 800, 900 different pictures to the defense throughout the course of the season. We want the ability to be really, really multiple for our opponent to make things difficult for them. We want to keep it simple for us in our room when we're teaching. We want to do it really, really instinctively and play fast and appear, very multiple to the defense. That's the one misconception, and the other obviously is the run pass deal. It's not our goal just to throw for 500 and flip it 70 times a game. If that's what they give us, that's what we'll do, and we have that capability. And I think the best thing about it, the whole system, is it's flexible enough that if your strength lies in one area one year, you emphasize that part of the offense more. The second year, talent may change or graduate. You have a different quarterback, you have a different running back, you have better or fewer receivers in a particular year. You have a stud tight end one year you don't. You just emphasize what your talent dictates you have. Go ahead.
At Ole Miss, you ranked top 10 nationally in yards per play, but then struggled in the red zone and getting in the end zone. Why the disconnect there, and how can you improve that?
2 things I would say. One, we've forever been very good on third down and very good in the red zone, and particularly very, very successful in goal line situations. Ole Miss, I think, from the parameters that we had, we ran about 60-65% of the offense. One of the things that's real exciting for me here is Mac Brown has said, run it, go do it. And the stuff that we did for the last 20 years, the full playlist, 100% of the offense is at our disposal here, and that's what we taught, and that's what we installed. And I think, I don't think there are any restrictions here, so we're able to, just attack it with the entire system, and we taught it all to the guys, and I don't foresee having red zone, goal line, and third down problems this season.
Got time for one more?
Why did you leave Ole Miss to come to North Carolina?
That's a great question, and I would say that it has absolutely nothing to do with Ole Miss. We had a great time there. My family enjoyed Oxford for 2 years. I worked for a really good person in Matt Luke, and I was around a great staff whom I miss, and so obviously some tremendous players. I think we had some of the best receivers in the country, so there was no reason to want to leave Ole Miss. And I know some of you may ask about the NCAA issues there, but those are actually gone now. If ever there was a year to stay there, it would have been this year, because they're actually on an even playing field this season. But I came out here to meet with Mac Brown, and before I ever talked to him, there was really no intention of ever leaving Ole Miss for a comparable job. a lateral move, as they say. But two things happened on the visit. One, he said, I don't want you to come visit with me unless you bring your wife. I thought that was a pretty classy move. And he felt like if there was going to be a change in my life, it was going to affect my wife as well. And so he flew both of us out. And I really liked that. And then we spent 48 hours out here, spent a lot of time with Mac Brown and Sally Brown. And for me, you just know when you go to a certain place and you're around certain people, it's just like when athletes are being recruited, out of high school. I just came here and spent time with Mac Brown and knew that this was the right place for me. I just felt like this is the guy. He's one of the best head football coaches in all of college football. Why would I not want to be here? And then to have the opportunity to do it in Chapel Hill at the University of North Carolina. And I'm familiar with North Carolina because John Bunning was my college football coach. So I had been down here in the spring and fall camp to watch his teams when he coached here. So to have a chance to come to a place like this, high quality of life, obviously you can win at a high level in the sport of football, and to coach for a guy like Mac Brown. That's the long-winded answer. The short-winded answer is two words, Mac Brown. He's the number one reason that I'm sitting here right now.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir. Thank you.